Assalamu alaikum students. I hope you will be fine at your home. So today we are going to talk about oxidative phosphorylation, which is the last and the fourth stage of aerobic respiration. So let's talk about oxidative phosphorylation in detail. You can see here, this is a diagram showing a part of the mitochondrial membrane, because we know that the process of oxidative phosphorylation takes place on the inner mitochondrial membrane. So obviously um, if this is inner mitochondrial membrane, of course this is the mitochondrial space, and then on the other side of mitochondrial space is going to be present the outer mitochondrial membrane, which is not shown over here. So this is the intermembranal space, and this is the inner membrane. Now we will see that you can see, uh, earlier we discussed this thing that all the reduced NAD and FAD molecules from all the three stages, from all the three previous stages of aerobic respiration, they are passed to the last stage of aerobic respiration, which is oxidative phosphorylation. So we can see that actually the reduced NAD and reduced FAD, they are passed to the electron transport chain, which is oxidative phosphorylation. Now, what happens over here to reduced NAD and reduced FAD both? Obviously, they accepted hydrogen, that's why they have got reduced. Now, the thing is this, now this hydrogen has to be removed once again from both these carriers. Once hydrogen is removed from both reduced NAD and FAD, obviously they get oxidized once again. Now, we are not concerned with the oxidized, what happens to the oxidized reduced NAD and FAD. Okay, we will talk about the hydrogen now, which is removed from the two hydrogen carrier molecules. Okay, so I will describing it once again. Reduced NAD molecules and reduced FAD molecules, they are passed to the electron transport chain, are oxidative phosphorylation. Over here, hydrogen is removed from all the hydrogen carrier molecules. Obviously, we can understand once the hydrogen is removed, these hydrogen carrier molecules becomes oxidized once again. Now we have to see what happens to the hydrogen which has been removed from these hydrogen carrier molecules. Once hydrogen has been removed, then this hydrogen gets split into its constituents. Now, what are the constituent of hydrogen? Obviously, it gets split into its hydrogen ions and electrons. Okay, and once if we say that these are hydrogen ions, obviously one hydrogen ion carries one proton, so that hydrogen ion can be called as a single proton as well. Okay, once the electrons they have been removed. So you can see that there are a number of proteins present in the in the phospholipid bilayer. You people have already studied those different types of proteins present in the a phospholipid bilayer, or in the cell membrane of any organelle, or any or the cell even. Now, if obviously the characteristics of those cell membrane, whether it's a mitochondrial membrane or it's a chloroplast membrane, that remains the same. So obviously there are certain proteins, as you can see over here. It's one, it's two, it's three, it's four, and this is fifth one as well. And all these three proteins, they are different in structure as well, structure and shape and size also. Now, you people have studied that there are basically three types of proteins according to their location in the phospholipid bilayer or in the membrane. There are some proteins which are intrinsic protein, obviously, which are towards the cytoplasm. Right, over here, this is of course not the cytoplasm, but they are facing towards the matrix. So actually these two are the intrinsic protein, and then there are extrinsic protein, but there is no extrinsic protein present in this case over here, as we can see in the figure. So these two proteins and this third one as well, they are the transmembrane proteins. Transmembrane proteins are those which are spanning across the whole membrane, right from here till here. So these are the transmembrane proteins. Now you see, once hydrogen gets split into hydrogen ions and electrons, then you see the electrons, they are passed to a series of electron carriers. Now where these electron carriers are present, actually these electron carriers, they are associated with these membrane proteins. But remember, I am here talking about these four proteins. I'm not talking about this fifth one protein. Okay, so these electron carriers to which the electrons are passed, they are associated with these four proteins. Okay. uh, uh, Basically, these proteins, they, you can see over here, there are of different four different types of proteins present here. And actually this unit, which consists of one of each these four types of protein, that is called as respiratory complex. So actually this this unit, which consists of one of each these four types of proteins, that is called as respiratory complex. So as actually this is respiratory complex. Okay, or from here till here, this is a respiratory complex. And what does respiratory complex consist of? Respiratory complex consists of one of each these proteins. And these proteins and of course we say that these electron carriers, they are associated with these proteins. So these proteins, they are arranged in such a way, and obviously when proteins are arranged in such a way that these electron carriers, they are placed in order of their energy level. It means um, and the one electron carrier which is present here in this first protein, that is at a high energy level. And the second protein, the second electron carrier which is present on the second protein, that is placed at a low energy level as compared to the first one. So same, the third one is at more low energy level as compared to the second one. Fourth one is placed again at a even more low energy level as compared to this third one. So actually these proteins, they are arranged in such a way that electrons, they can be passed from one carrier to another carrier down the energy gradient, right? So these electrons, you can see over here, we are not going to talk about hydrogen ions right now, we are just concerned with the electrons. So you can see over here, these electrons are passed to the hydrogen, these electron carriers. when electrons when an electron moves from one electron carrier to the next one, and then from this one to this one, and then from this one to this one. So when electrons move from one electron carrier to the next electron carrier, and obviously this electron carrier was present at a high energy level as compared to this electron carrier which is present over here, that is at a low energy level. So when electrons are moving from one electron carrier at a high energy level to the next electron carrier at a low energy level, obviously they are moving down the energy gradient, so energy is released in this process. Okay, we know that whenever electrons, they are moving from a high energy level state to a low energy level state, energy is always released. So same is the case over here, because these electron carriers, they are placed in such a way that when electrons are going to move from one electron carrier to the next one, they are going to move down the energy gradient. So whenever they are going to move down the energy gradient, energy is going to be released. But obviously this energy is now electrical potential energy. Okay, it's not the chemical potential energy, because this energy is going to be released when electrons are going to move from one electron carrier to another one down the energy gradient. So this is the electrical potential energy which is released here. Now some of this electrical potential energy that is used to move. Now these hydrogen ions, actually they are present in the matrix. So some of this energy that is used to move the protons. Obviously we can call hydrogen ions as protons now. So some of this energy is used to move hydrogen ions or protons from the matrix of the mitochondria into the, this intermembranal space. You can see over here, obviously, the protons or any ion, if we are talking about, they can only pass through they can only pass from the matrix into the intermembranal space through these proteins. Through these protein channels, but obviously only through those proteins which are transmembrane proteins. Remember that this movement of protons, it cannot take place through intrinsic or extrinsic proteins. Over here, these two are the intrinsic protein. So you can see the movement of protons is not shown through these two proteins. Okay, so movement of the protons occur these through transmembrane proteins. But remember this thing, that this respiratory complex, which consists of four of these different type of proteins, it is present throughout the inner mitochondrial membrane, and randomly. It's not only that it's only a single respiratory complex present only here at this point. Many respiratory complexes are um, uh, present at random on the inner mitochondrial membrane, right? So some of the electrical potential energy that is used to move these protons um, from the matrix of the mitochondria into the intermembranal space. And obviously this movement of protons, that's an example of active transport over here, because energy is going to be utilized to move the protons from the matrix into the into the intermembranal space. Now you see, when protons, they have been moved into the intermembranal space, now over here there is a high concentration of protons set up, right? Uh, so there is a steep concentration gradient set up for the protons between this intermembranal space and matrix of mitochondria. Okay, so leaving here. Now, what happens once there is a high concentration of protons produced in the intermembranal space? Now, these protons, they move back into the matrix of mitochondrion through this transmembrane protein. Remember that this transmembrane protein is not the part of the respiratory complex, okay? It is separate. So protons, they move back from the intermembranal space into the matrix of mitochondria, but now this is going to be down the concentration gradient, and now this is an example of facilitated diffusion because it is taking place through this protein channel, but not with the utilization of energy, because protons are moving down their concentration gradient from the intermembranal space back into the matrix of mitochondria. Now remember that you can see here, that this transmembrane protein, this protein channel, with this protein channel is associated ATP synthase. Now, as the name indicate, ATP synthase word comes from the synthesis. So it means this is the enzyme which is involved with the synthesis of ATP from ADP and inorganic phosphate. So when the protons, they are moving down their concentration gradient from the intermembranal space back into the matrix of mitochondria, um, this their electrical potential energy that is used to synthesize ATP from ADP and inorganic phosphate. And remember that this process is called as chemiosmosis. Okay, I will repeat it once again. Protons, once there is a high concentration of protons in the intermembranal space, now the protons move down their concentration gradient back into the matrix of mitochondria, and this is an example of facilitated diffusion, no usage of energy over here. And this facilitated diffusion takes place through this protein channel, associated with which is ATP synthase. So when protons, they're moving down their concentration gradient, their electrical potential energy that is used to synthesize ATP from ADP and inorganic phosphate. So that's all. Now, what happens to these hydrogen ions and these electrons? Basically, now here comes the role of oxygen. You have seen that throughout all the stages of respiration, there is no role of oxygen. We have seen previously. Basically, oxygen is the final acceptor of electrons over here. Basically, oxygen, we say it dumps the electrons and hydrogen ions. So what happens here in the mitochondrial matrix? An electron and a proton, they are transferred to the oxygen, and as a result of that, oxygen gets reduced, and that leads to the formation of water molecule. So this is how the process of oxidative phosphorylation that is complete. And remember this process which we said that when the protons, they are moving down the concentration gradient, and as the protons, they're moving through the channels, the electrical potential energy is used to synthesize ATP, and that process is called as chemiosmosis. And remember that uh, in anaerobic respiration, you see there is no oxygen present over there, but only the process of glycolysis occurs there. No link reaction, no Krebs cycle, and of course, no oxidative phosphorylation. Okay, so if you see why link reaction, and we will talk about it, why link reaction and Krebs cycle, they don't take place in anaerobic respiration. Okay, that's a later discussion. So we will see to it when we are going to talk about anaerobic respiration. Now, this is, see, these are the bullet points once again. Reduced NAD and FAD pass to the electron transport chain. Hydrogen removed from the hydrogen carriers. Splitting of hydrogen takes place. Electron transfer to a series of electron carriers. Then we talked about the respiratory complex. And then electrons, they move down the energy gradient. In this process, energy is released. Some energy is used to transport protons from the matrix to the intermembranous space by the process of active transport. And then you see once the protons, they have moved into the intermembranous space, that generates a high concentration of protons over there. So now protons, they move back into the matrix through the protein channels down their concentration gradient by the process of facilitated diffusion. And once again, their electrical potential and energy, while the protons are moving down the concentration gradient through the protein channel, you see the formation of ATP takes place as ATP synthase is also associated with this protein channel, and this ATP and this process of formation of ATP, that is called as chemiosmosis. Now you see, theoretically we say now how many ATP molecules are produced in oxidative phosphorylation? Questions comes over there. Theoretically, 3 molecules of ATP, they can be produced from each molecule of reduced NAD, and 2 molecules of ATP from each molecule of reduced FAD, right? Actually, it depends on how much energy is released when electrons are passing from one carrier to another carrier. Okay, so theoretically, 3 molecules of ATP can be produced, because obviously ATP requires energy as well, right? And that energy is coming from the transfer of electrons from one energy, from the movement of electrons from one electron carrier to the next one, right? So theoretically, from each molecule of reduced NAD, 3 molecules of ATP can be produced. And from each molecule of reduced FAD, 2 molecules of ATP can be produced. But actually, this yield, this 100% yield, energy yield, cannot be achieved unless and until ADP and inorganic phosphate, they're available inside the mitochondria. So actually, around about 25% of total energy yield of electron transfer, that is used to transport ADP into the mitochondria, and once ATP has been synthesized, then to move the ATP back into the cytoplasm. So practically, then we see that from each reduced NAD, 2.5 molecules of ATP that can be made, and from each reduced FAD, 1.5 molecule of ATP they can be produced, right? So, and remember that the number of ATP molecules actually produced, it varies in different tissues and also in different circumstances, and that depends on how much energy is used to move the substances into and out of the mitochondria. Like for the movement of ADP from the cytoplasm of the cell into the matrix of mitochondria, and then for the movement of ATP from the matrix of mitochondria back into the cytoplasm of the cell. So we will see, if we see the total number of reduced NAD and FAD passed to the oxidative phosphorylation or electron transport chain from the different stages of respiration, you can see number of reduced NAD passed from glycolysis to oxidative phosphorylation is 2. Number of reduced NAD passed from link reaction to oxidative phosphorylation, that is again 2. Number of reduced, just correct it here. Number of reduced NAD passed from link reaction, that is again 2. Number of reduced NAD passed from Krebs cycle to oxidative, that is 6. And number of reduced FAD passed from Krebs cycle to oxidative phosphorylation, that is 2. So if we look at the balance sheet for ATP, remember that from each reduced, when we are going to calculate the total number of ATP molecules, we have to keep in our mind that from each reduced NAD, 2.5 ATP molecule are produced, and from each reduced FAD, 1.5 ATP molecules are produced. Okay. So if we look at the process of glycolysis, there were some ATP molecule which were directly made in glycolysis. Actually, for the synthesis of these ATP molecule, that the energy which is used for the synthesis of these ATP molecules which are directly made in glycolysis or Krebs cycle, that is actually the chemical potential energy. Okay, we will talk about it later on. From where does this chemical energy come? Okay, so directly 4 ATP molecules they were made, 2 ATP molecules they were utilized, so net gain was 2. In neck reaction, there was no production of, there was no formation of ATP molecules, so 0, 0, no ATP utilized, so net gain is 0. In Krebs cycle, no ATP was used, however, direct ATP molecules made utilizing the chemical potential energy, that was 2, so the net gain was again 2. In oxidative phosphorylation, no utilization of energy, but ATP molecule made is 28. Now, how does this 28 comes? If you remember, total reduced NAD molecule entering into the oxidative phosphorylation, that is 10. Now, if we take 10 reduced NAD and we say from one reduced NAD, 2.5 ATP molecules are made. So how many are going to be made from 10 reduced NAD? That is 25. Now, what is left behind? 2 reduced FAD, and each reduced FAD that gives you 1.5 ATP molecule. It means from 2 reduced FAD, we are getting 3 ATP molecules. So 25 plus 3, that is total 28. So this is how in oxidative phosphorylation, 28 ATP molecules are made and net gain is 28. So if we see to this, that how much is 34 were the total ATP molecules made throughout the process of aerobic respiration, whether using the electrical potential energy or chemical potential energy. Out of 34, 2 ATP molecules were used in glycolysis, so the net gain is 32. So we can see over here the majority of ATP molecules, they are made in oxidative phosphorylation. As we can see, it's 28 in number. We will continue this lesson inshallah on Friday. For today, this is sufficient. So have a good day. Allah Hafiz. If there will be any question, any point not clear to you, please you can send me the question in the WhatsApp group. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.